The thing most people do after dinner. You finish dinner at 7. Maybe it was chicken and vegetables, maybe pasta, maybe a sandwich. Whatever you ate, dinner is over, but eating isn't. At 8:30, you grab a few crackers. At 9:15, maybe it's a handful of nuts. Then you're watching television and you remember there's ice cream in the freezer. And before bed, maybe you have one more little snack because after all, it's only a few bites. None of those moments feels important, but together they can mean that your body spends almost the entire evening processing a steady stream of incoming energy. Now, imagine doing something different tonight. Nothing extreme, no 3-day fast, no expensive supplement, no special detox drink. When dinner is finished, the kitchen closes. No dessert 2 hours later, no crackers while watching television. No handful of food every time you walk through the kitchen. Unless you need food for a medical reason, you simply allow dinner to be the last calories of your day. Then you sleep. And during that food-free period, something interesting happens. Your body gradually moves away from constantly processing incoming nutrients and deeper into its fasting physiology. Researchers sometimes describe part of this transition as a metabolic switch, where the body increasingly shifts from readily available glucose towards stored fuels as fasting continues. And at the cellular level, nutrient availability is also connected with processes such as autophagy, the recycling system cells use to break down and reuse damaged or unnecessary cellular material. Nutrient deprivation can increase autophagic activity, although scientists cannot currently give humans a universal clock time at which autophagy suddenly turns on. That's the cleanup we're talking about today, not a magical detox, not your body literally eating diseases, and not a promise that skipping an evening snack cures anything. It's something much more interesting. Your body already contains maintenance and recycling systems, and the fed versus fasted state can influence how those systems operate. So what actually happens after you stop eating for the night? Let's follow your body from dinner all the way to breakfast. Hour 0. Dinner is finished. The moment you finish dinner, your body has work to do. Carbohydrates are broken down into smaller sugars. Proteins are broken into amino acids. Fats are digested and packaged for transport. Your blood glucose can rise depending on the meal, and insulin helps move and store that incoming energy. Right now, your body isn't thinking, there's no food coming, better conserve and recycle. It's receiving a fresh delivery. Think of your body like a large warehouse. Dinner just pulled up in several trucks. Workers are opening boxes, sorting packages, sending nutrients where they're needed, storing some energy for later. There's no reason to immediately start emptying the storage rooms. You've just brought more material inside. And this is normal. The fed state is not bad, insulin is not bad, digestion is not bad. Your body is supposed to respond to food. The problem isn't eating dinner. The question is, what happens if you never give that delivery system much of a break before the next delivery arrives? Dinner, dessert, snack, sweet drink, another snack, then breakfast early the next morning. For many people, the eating window becomes extremely long. So tonight we're testing a simple concept. What happens if dinner actually means dinner is finished? The first few hours, your body processes the meal. For several hours after eating, your body continues digesting and absorbing nutrients. Glucose from the meal can be used immediately for energy. Some can be stored as glycogen, primarily in the liver and muscles. Dietary fat can also be stored. This stage isn't the dramatic part of fasting. You're still processing dinner. And this is where one of the biggest misconceptions begins. Someone online might tell you, stop eating for exactly 4 hours and your cells immediately begin massive autophagy. Human biology isn't that simple. Autophagy exists at a baseline level even when we're eating, and fasting-related changes depend on factors including the person, tissue, nutritional status, and length of fasting. Researchers have strong mechanistic and animal evidence linking nutrient deprivation with increased autophagy, but measuring the exact timing and magnitude throughout the human body is much harder. So instead of obsessing over a magical hour, think about direction. Fed state. Incoming nutrients are abundant. As the food-free period extends, those incoming nutrients decline. Your hormonal and fuel environment begins changing, and eventually the body relies increasingly on energy it already has stored. That's the transition we're interested in, why the 9 p.m. snack matters. Now let's go back to the kitchen. It's 9 o'clock. Dinner was 2 hours ago. You're not truly hungry. But you've done this every night for years. You open the refrigerator and you eat something. What happened? You haven't ruined your body, but you have given it another nutrient delivery. Your digestive system has another job. Your metabolism responds again to incoming food. And your overnight food-free interval starts later. That's why the action in this video is so simple. Stop treating the hours between dinner and bedtime as a second dinner. For some people, just removing habitual late-night snacking naturally creates a longer overnight period without calories, without counting every calorie or attempting an aggressive, prolonged fast. For example, if someone finishes dinner around 7 and eats breakfast around 7 the next morning, that's roughly a 12-hour food-free period. But understand this carefully. 12 hours is an example, not a magical autophagy number. Human ketone levels can begin rising within roughly 8 to 12 hours after fasting begins, but the broader metabolic switch varies with factors such as activity, the previous meal, and glycogen availability. So don't stare at the clock at 6:59 in the morning thinking, my cellular cleanup hasn't started yet. That's not how biology works. What your body does as incoming energy disappears, as the night continues and you're no longer eating, your body still needs energy. Your heart doesn't stop, your brain doesn't stop, your liver doesn't stop, your kidneys keep working, your cells continue repairing, communicating, and maintaining themselves. But now there isn't a sandwich coming in every few hours, so your body increasingly uses stored energy. Liver glycogen helps maintain blood glucose. Fat stores can increasingly contribute fatty acids, and with longer fasting, the liver can produce more ketone bodies from fat. Researchers call this movement toward greater reliance on fatty acids and ketones the metabolic switch. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. Your body doesn't only have energy storage systems, it also has recycling systems, and one of the most fascinating is autophagy. Autophagy, your cell's recycling department. The word autophagy literally comes from words meaning something like self-eating. That sounds terrifying. But don't picture your body destroying itself. Picture a recycling center inside the cell. Cells contain proteins, structures, and tiny components that can become old, damaged, or unnecessary. Instead of allowing all of that material to pile up forever, cells can capture some of it, break it down, and recycle useful components. Autophagy is therefore part of normal cellular housekeeping and homeostasis. Imagine you own a workshop. Every day you create scraps, broken pieces, old parts, damaged tools. If you never remove or recycle anything, eventually the workshop becomes harder to operate. Cells also need systems for maintenance. Autophagy is one of them, and nutritional signals matter. When nutrients are plentiful, cells receive signals associated with growth and building. When nutrients become scarce, cellular signaling can shift toward conservation, adaptation, and recycling. Laboratory and animal research strongly supports fasting and calorie restriction as stimuli that can increase autophagy in multiple tissues. Human research is promising, but much less able to tell us exactly how much autophagy is occurring in every organ at every fasting hour. That's why I want you to remember one sentence from this video. Autophagy is real. The internet's exact autophagy clock is not. So, does your body clean itself while you sleep? In a sense, cellular maintenance is happening all the time. Your body doesn't wait until you fall asleep and then press a giant clean button. But giving your body a genuine period without continuous incoming calories changes its metabolic environment. Fasting can reduce nutrient signaling and activate pathways associated with stress resistance, fuel switching, and cellular maintenance. That makes the overnight period interesting because you're already going several hours without food simply by sleeping. You don't have to invent an entirely new part of your day. You're extending something your body naturally does every night. Instead of dinner, snack, bed, wake up, breakfast. You might have dinner, kitchen closed, sleep, breakfast. That's it. For many people, the biggest change isn't adding anything, it's removing the constant grazing. What about insulin? You've probably heard someone say, you need to keep insulin as low as possible. That's an oversimplification. Insulin is an essential hormone. After eating, insulin helps your body handle nutrients. During the food-free period, insulin levels generally decline from their post-meal state as the immediate need to process incoming glucose decreases. That lower insulin environment is one part of the shift that allows stored fuels to become more available. The important idea isn't insulin is the enemy. It's your metabolism is designed to experience both fed and fasting states. Constant eating can reduce how long you spend in the latter state. The late-night eating problem is bigger than autophagy. There's another reason I'm focusing on what happens after dinner. Meal timing interacts with our circadian biology. Your body isn't metabolically identical at every hour of the day. Research on time-restricted eating has investigated whether concentrating food intake into consistent daily windows, and in some studies eating earlier rather than later, can influence glucose regulation and other metabolic outcomes. Clinical research has reported improvements in some metabolic measures with time-restricted eating, although results vary between studies and the benefits cannot automatically be attributed to autophagy. That last sentence matters. If someone loses weight or improves blood sugar while using time-restricted eating, you can't simply say, autophagy did it. They may also be eating fewer total calories. Their meal timing changed. Their food choices may have changed. Their weight may have changed. Their sleep routine may have changed. Human metabolism doesn't allow us to credit every benefit to one mechanism. This channel is about understanding your body, not turning one interesting biological process into a miracle explanation for everything. So, should I skip breakfast too? Not necessarily. This video isn't telling you to turn a normal overnight food-free period into an extreme fast. The easiest starting point may simply be eliminating unnecessary late-night calories. If dinner ends at 7 and you're hungry at 9 every single night, first ask why. Was dinner actually enough? Did it contain enough protein, fiber, whole foods? Are you eating from genuine hunger or from habit? Television starts, so food appears. Movie starts, so popcorn appears. You walk through the kitchen, so the refrigerator opens. Those are very different from true physical hunger. And if your body genuinely needs more nutrition, especially if you're older, frail, underweight, recovering from illness, or trying to preserve muscle, aggressive fasting may be a poor fit. The National Institute on Aging has specifically noted that more research is needed to determine the safety and long-term effects of fasting patterns in older adults. So the goal is not eat as little as possible. The goal is stop eating automatically when you don't actually need to. The biggest mistake, turning this into a competition. This happens constantly. Someone begins with a reasonable overnight food-free interval. Then they hear 12 hours is good, but 16 is better. Then 16 is good, but 18 gives more autophagy. Then why not 24? Suddenly something simple becomes a contest. Longer isn't automatically better. Research on intermittent fasting shows potentially useful metabolic effects, but fasting can also have risks, and there is no universal fasting duration that's optimal for every human being. Your nutritional needs matter. Your age matters. Your weight matters. Your medications matter. Your medical conditions matter. And whether you can maintain adequate protein, calories, and micronutrients matters. The goal isn't to win the fasting Olympics. If you have diabetes, pay attention to this. This part is especially important. If you have diabetes and take insulin or medications that can lower blood glucose, changing when you eat can change your risk of hypoglycemia. Some glucose-lowering medications are specifically associated with low blood sugar when food intake and medication aren't properly balanced. That means do not dramatically change your eating schedule or medication schedule on your own. Talk with the healthcare professional managing your diabetes. Fasting has been studied in people with type 2 diabetes, and the research is promising in selected patients, but medication management and individual risk are important. This is not the place for my neighbor fasted for 18 hours, so I can too. Your body and medications aren't your neighbors. Tonight's simple experiment. So what can you actually do with everything you've learned? Keep it simple. Tonight, eat a normal, satisfying dinner. Not an enormous last meal, just dinner. When you're finished, mentally close the kitchen. If you routinely snack later, notice when the urge appears. Don't immediately fight it, investigate it. Ask, am I physically hungry, or did I just start watching television? Am I bored? Am I stressed? Is eating at 9 p.m. simply something I've trained myself to do? Then allow your normal sleep period to become part of your food-free window. Water is different from calories, of course, and staying appropriately hydrated still matters. Tomorrow morning, eat according to the approach that's appropriate for your nutritional and medical needs. You don't need to buy anything. You don't need a powder. You don't need a detox kit. And you don't need to obsess over the exact minute your fast began. You're simply creating a clear separation between your last meal of one day and the first meal of the next. What you should not expect tomorrow morning. You probably will not wake up looking 10 years younger. You didn't melt every damaged cell overnight. You didn't cure chronic disease. You didn't erase decades of metabolic problems. And you did not detox your entire body in 12 hours. Those are marketing claims. Biology is slower and more complicated. The interesting question is what happens when healthy behaviors become patterns? One night becomes a week becomes a month. Late night snacking is no longer automatic. Your eating schedule becomes more consistent. Perhaps your total calorie intake changes. Perhaps your metabolic health changes. Research on time-restricted eating and intermittent fasting is investigating exactly these longer-term effects, with some trials showing benefits for body weight and metabolic measures, while scientists continue studying who benefits most and how much meal timing itself contributes. That is far more believable and far more useful than promising a miracle tomorrow morning. The part most people miss here's the surprising part. Your body doesn't need you to clean it with a special tea. Your cells already contain maintenance machinery. Your liver and kidneys already perform critical processing and waste removal functions. Your metabolism already knows how to transition between incoming food and stored energy. The point isn't to invent a new biological system. The point is to stop interrupting normal physiology every hour with another snack. That's why tonight's action sounds almost too simple. Finish dinner, and then actually finish eating. Let there be a period when no more calories are arriving. During the hours that follow, your body continues digesting, gradually shifts its fuel use, and operates cellular maintenance pathways that include autophagy. Not because of a miracle, because that's what living cells do. Before you try it, if you're healthy and your usual late night eating is simply habitual snacking, removing those unnecessary snacks may be a straightforward change. But fasting or restricting eating windows isn't appropriate for everyone. Be especially careful about experimenting on your own if you take diabetes medications, have a history of problems with low blood sugar, are underweight or frail, have significant medical conditions, or have been advised to eat on a particular schedule. Older adults also need adequate nutrition to maintain health, so less eating should never become the goal simply because fasting is popular. Research organizations, including the National Institute on Aging, emphasize that scientists are still determining the long-term benefits and risks of fasting patterns in different populations, including older people. When in doubt, discuss a major fasting change with your healthcare professional. So let's bring everything together. If you finish dinner tonight and avoid unnecessary late-night calories, you create something most people rarely think about: an uninterrupted overnight period without incoming food. During the first hours, you're still processing dinner. As time passes, incoming nutrients decline. Your body increasingly relies on stored energy. Ketone production can begin to rise as fasting extends. And cellular nutrient sensing systems shift. One of the processes influenced by nutrient availability is autophagy, your cells' recycling and housekeeping machinery. But remember, there is no scientifically established universal hour when every person's body suddenly enters maximum cleanup mode. So forget chasing an exact number. Start with the behavior. Finish dinner. Stop grazing all evening. Give your body a genuine overnight break from incoming calories. And make sure the approach fits your health, medications, and nutritional needs. Sometimes improving your routine isn't about adding another supplement. Sometimes it's about removing one habit you never realized was there. Tonight, after dinner, close the kitchen and let your body handle the night. If you found this useful, subscribe to Ask Dr. Ethan, because in the next video, we're going to answer the question everyone asks after learning about autophagy. What actually happens inside your body when you haven't eaten for 12 hours? And the answer isn't what most fasting videos tell you. I'll see you there.